Hello students, I am Dr. Shailendra Kumar Singh. In this short lecture of today, we will discuss about how to make good research collaboration and material transfer agreements. Both agreements are very important mechanism by which any collaboration could be formalized and accomplish any collaborative work. These agreements actually help to set the rules that will govern to the collaborative effect. So let's start. Imagine there are two parties. One is a sponsor and another one is team of researchers. They have an expectation that if they collaborate together for a research, then there may be a new incremental intellectual property. So to start with the concept of collaborative research work, there should be a good research idea through which both parties benefit from the work and that will be done. Furthermore, a good collaborative research agreement is also essential which will provide not only shared rights and access to the results to solve the mutual research interest, but also solve the challenges in between researchers and sponsor. So the objective of writing a collaborative research agreement is to clarify for both parties what they are trying to accomplish together and to clearly set for the rules that will govern the collaborative effort. Of course, simply writing that an agreement is mutually beneficial does not make so. An effective agreement must be based on an actual win-win relationship, one that is truly mutually beneficial. A poorly written agreement can tear apart an otherwise harmonious relationship. On the other hand, a well-written agreement in which all parties understand their responsibilities will build an strengthen productive scientific relationship. So a good partnership must be mutually beneficial, and an effective collaborative research agreement will help both parties to understand and accept mutual benefit as a goal. So, so there are some tips to initiate and successful research collaboration. Address mutual expectations. Every member of a team may have different expectations about how each person will contribute and how they will credit it. By discussing these expectations openly, it is easier for each team member to contribute to the project effectively. Clearly divide and stabilize who is responsible for each task. Along the same lines as addressing expectations, a clear division of labor makes each team member's role in the project clear. Determine authorship. In a collaboration, there it may appear that each person has clear role. This assumption, however, can lead to confusion and disagreement over first authorship. Agree on authorship at the beginning of the project. If the project changes or takes a new direction, authorship may also change. As soon as this happens, all parties will renegotiate about authorship. Okay, now next we'll move on to the next point. Communicate frequently. Keep open lines of communication with the team. Take minutes of meeting and then distribute to everyone involved in the research. Access to data. This is very important point. Not all parties may have access to all data. A clear conversion at the beginning of the project is necessary to stabilize who will access to what information. And not last but not least, discuss the expectation for the data with all researchers before research begins. How will research be communicated and how soon will it be shared after the research is conducted? These all points should be discussed in the team before to start any collaboration work. Most collaborative research agreements actually have five general parts. The first part of The collaborative research agreement is commonly called Statement of Objectives. This explains the overall setting of the agreement. It describes what the parties want to accomplish together and why the collaboration is important. The second part of a well drafted collaborative research agreement is called Statement of Purpose. This may sometimes called the research plan. It describes the research that the parties propose to conduct and includes which approaches will be undertaken or which methodology will be used. Most importantly, this part of the agreement specifies who is responsible for what, and it also specifies the due dates of for completing each part of the research project. Now, the third part is an effective written collaborative research agreement, which is called general provisions. These are sometimes known as legal provisions. It cover a series of important details like the mechanism of collaboration and the rules by which the collaboration will be conducted. And the fourth part is the budget. This part sets for the resources that each party needs and contributes to the collaborative research project. Or collaborative research agreements in which biological or any other materials are passed from one party to other for use in the project. The agreement typically includes an additional section which we call list of materials. This section is often attached an appendix to the agreement. In some cases, there may be more than one appendix, since the materials being used and transferred may change over the course of the project. In the last slide, we discussed about the materials. Materials could be anything: reagents, cell lines, antibodies, research tools, softwares, germ plasma or genetic stocks, biotech components, and so on. Actually, there is a long history of sharing biological materials, and most of the time, this sharing has been done freely and often without any form of legal agreement. But nowadays, with growing regularity and the sharing of research materials takes place under material transfer agreements. In short, MTAs. So MTAs are legal agreements or bailments that govern the transfer of tangible property between parties without transfer of title. Under such an agreement, the provider maintains ownership of the property transferred. Transfer property is held by the receiving party according to terms stipulated in a legally binding contract. The contract therefore governs the transfer of tangible biological materials between two or more parties. In addition to the tangible property rights being owned by the provider, the materials may be subject of a patent or patent application. In this case, the MTA may be needed to account for the transfer of IP rights as well as the transfer of tangible material. Transfer of IP rights would be in the form of license, for example, to make, use, sell, and so forth. That is, a license is permission to do what would otherwise violate the provider's IP rights. Now let's move on to the MTA types. There are three types of MTA which are most common in academic institution. Actually, sharing of materials between university scientists is generally less problematic than transfer between industry and academia because the cultures of the and motivations of each institution involved in the exchange are similar. Due to divergent institutional priorities, material transfer between private and public sector are generally more complex than those between public sector institutions or two universities, and they are actually much more prone to failure, particularly when the transfer is from a company to a university researcher. Overall, the transfer of materials between researchers has been getting more difficult, and it appears that the days of open exchange of materials, particularly from researchers in industry to academic researchers in the life sciences, are over. For example, for the simple transfer not involving intellectual property right, the NIH recommends a simple letter agreement. And the materials that has been patented or for which more protection is desired, another biological material transfer agreement UBMTA can be used. Now let's move on to the next topic. An MTA, regardless of its length and complexity, it may incorporate these points. An MTA can range in size from a few hundred words on one page to several thousand words on more than a dozen pages. And it will include these points like preamble. Preamble. Preamble of an MTA is like an abstract of a manuscript or a prologue in a novel. Definitions. An MTA may have separate sections to define specific terms, such as materials, use of the materials, modifications, or inventions. A description of use of the material. MTA specify how the recipient can and cannot use the material. Confidential information. It may also contain confidential information. It can be defined as information that data or material in written or tangible form related to the material that is identified as confidential at the time of disclosure. IP rights. Nearly every MTA will address IP matters, such as disclosing of inventions, the prosecuting of patents and plant variety protection certificate, and the granting of option and license. Warranties. An MTA nearly always stipulates the material does not come with any warranties. A typically warranty clause usually written in capital letters. And then the liability and indemnification. Usually it stipulates usually that recipient of the materials assumes all liabilities for damages that may arise from the recipient's use or storage or disposal of the material. Publication. This is most important part. An MTA should enable the recipient of the materials to publish or present the results of the recipient research using the materials without the approval of the provider. Governing law. MTA may specify that governed by the laws of particular jurisdiction, state or country. Termination. MTA should also specify about the expiration date for the agreement. Otherwise, the recipient obligations will continue forever. The parties should be able to terminate the MTA earlier by providing advance written notice. Signatures. Signature section is usually the last part of an MTA. And an MTA may have the signature of the many individuals like authorized official for the organization, researchers who's providing the material. And the last point is exhibits or appendix. This include the attachment of the end of the at the end of the agreement. So these are the some of the points in which contains the an MTA document. Now let's move on to the next slide and see the draft MTA. Okay, this picture shows the draft of the NMTA document. You can find the some of the points which we have discussed in the later in the previous slide. Okay, now let's move the last slide and this is our thought. So these are the questions from the this presentation, and if you have any doubts, you can always contact me on the WhatsApp and mail me answer of this question at my mail ID trchalet2@gmail.com. Thank you.